Okay, so I already know this isn't going to work. Actually, this line right here might work, but the code won't work. And the reason the code won't work is because I made a zillion really kind of dumb errors down here that I just discovered. So I'm going to have a bunch of typos, and I kind of want to just clarify exactly what I have done and why it is silly. So I have if length of info A is less than length of info B, but then I forgot the closing parentheses and the colon. I did the exact same thing down here. So I forgot my closing parentheses and the colon. You've got to make sure you have the same number of left-handed parentheses as you do right-handed parentheses. So if you have a syntax error, which you will get, I'm sure, frequently, that is probably the first easiest thing to just double check. Whenever you have any new code and you're getting an error, just going through it, make sure you've got the same number of parentheses pointing both directions. And then the other thing that I did, which was really clever, is I just kind of invented length A and length B. Now I probably would complain if the syntax stuff was set up properly. It'd be like, I have no idea what length A is. So I did that down here as well. What I actually need to put in here is info A. So for however long info A is, and for however long info B is, do the following things here. So let me make sure this all kind of makes more or less sense. There's no real way to be 100% until you run it and either do or do not get errors. So I'll just make sure that this is kind of updated here. So for I in range length of info B, and we'll do the same thing down here, except say info A. Oops. Okay. So I think I've got the right number of parentheses here per line. I have some colons at the end of everything here. Okay. So, and just to make sure, I went ahead and comment this out. I'm gonna put a new little line here that says print foo, because if you have a definition that doesn't do anything, or it's returning a variable that you turned off, you'll get a problem. So what we're looking for here is basically no syntax errors, and I guess it'll print foo a bunch of times because we're going to be running that get distance command. All right. Okay, so we got a little problem here. So right here, I've got a for loop, but then I didn't indent. So Python is saying I was looking for something, and there wasn't anything inside the for loop, so that's how it knew that there was a little bit of a problem. So let's try this one more time. Line 86, index out of range. Okay. So this needs to be changed to B, and this one needs to be changed to A. We'll go ahead and select everything. Okay. Great. So I'm not really sure what's going on with the none there. That's not a problem though. We're just confirming that we don't have any syntax errors. So hopefully all of this stuff here is clear. We just have two lists, and we are going through the longer list. For the first thing, the longer list, we're going through all of the things in the shorter list and getting the distance between those two things. So now what we kind of want to do is actually make sure our distance stuff is working properly. So I'm going to rewrite this because again, I guess now that it works, we can go ahead and see if this little symbol here that I'm actually not familiar with, but it might work. That'd be pretty convenient. Yeah, okay, so square root, right. So we've got to do math dot square root here, which means we need to go ahead and import math, which makes me a little bit nervous about this, but hey, one way to find out. Oh, right. Oh, so I'm still using the variables that were in the script. So this needs to be changed to a bracket 0. So that's going to be the x value in our first list and the x value in our second list. And we'll copy this stuff. And for the y, we need to put 1 in and 1. And then for the z, we need to put 2 in over here. Haha, got myself there. Yeah, so it doesn't know what this is, and I'm not surprised. That's fine. We can actually just do a little bit of a modification here and reuse most of this code. So what we're going to do is we're going to use math.pow, which is how we raise things to the whatever power we want. So in this case, it's going to be 2. So we have sort of two things here. We have the value that we're going to be modifying, and then the power that we're going to modify it by, plus math.pow. We'll say comma 2 parentheses, and then math.power, comma 2, and a final closing parentheses for our math.square root function. Let's try it again now. Okay. So what we can see is we're getting a lot of numbers, and interspersed in those numbers are zeros. So the zeros are kind of what we're looking for. These numbers here are the distance between our test face and all of the faces in the other mesh. So if what we're getting in any of our test cases, if the result is ever 0, that means we have two faces that are sitting on top of each other. And in that case, we should keep the face. Now, if we have a face where we test against all of the other faces and we don't get a 0, that means all of the other faces are at least a little bit of a ways away from our test face, which means it is on the kill list. So now that all of this stuff is more or less functional, we want to put this stuff into a list. We don't really need to print any of it. So we're going through all of the test faces. So this is our smaller mesh, the mesh with fewer faces. So what we can do is we'll say face distance list equals get distance. And then we can say min val equals whatever the minimum value of our face distance list is, which will, so like basically we're capturing all of this stuff in a list called face distance list. And when I do the min of that, I'm going to basically get whatever the min value is. So now we can come over here and print our min val. And if that min val is not 0, then that is a dead face. So what I'm going to do is just try to kind of recreate that here without introducing any typos, which is always a challenge. So face distance list equals, all right, let's go ahead and print this, or run this code. Float object is not iterable. Okay, I think I know what I've done here. So it's complaining about line 90. Okay, so this is returning one value. What I need to actually do is sort of create this list like up here. And then we're actually going to append the output of our getDistance function to that list. And then we'll get rid of the stuff and do that kind of in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And we'll paste it down here, making sure to update the tabs and the lists that we're working on here. And real quick, before I end the video, I'm going to say print the min of the list. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to need to think this through a little bit. I may have my scoping off a little tiny bit. So we will take a look at this in the next video and hopefully get the whole thing working.